YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this. What is this little mini warbird doing from Top RC? It's being controlled by my NX10. Ooh. Very interesting, guys. We're going to show you exactly how we did it. This is the transmitter it came with. And if you stay tuned to the Unbox build radio setup, we'll show you flying it with that too, at least in this video. But for now, what we're gonna do is we'll show you have our full mode control and aerobatic button and all sorts of stuff. So throttle cuts off, watch, throttle cut. Oh, it's so nice. I don't have to worry about chopping my hands up. There we go, guys, we're in the air. Just flying along, got a beautiful day, not like huge, gigantic tornado clouds behind us. So as you can see, we're just flying along, having a good old time. No care in the world. Flew this earlier. Okay, going into expert mode here. Super cool. Whoa, it gets super wonk.
That was ridiculous.
Okay, let's go over here. I'm gonna cut in front of you, please.
Okay.
But as you can see, why don't you lay that down there, camera crew? What I was gonna say is this plane, woo! Okay, throttle cuts on. We just hit the top of the grass. Now, what we learned about this model is that it is so dang small that it is kind of hard to replace. You can use an S-bus receiver, or you can use a DSM receiver. I used a DSM-2 receiver from some orange that I had sitting around, but we'll show you what the current available options would be. But just remember, not SRXL2. This is the old style with 3 pins. SRXL2 has 4 pins, okay? So there's a little access hatch here that you can pull out and you can set up. Now this is also available to fly on the provided ready to fly transmitter. And it's okay, but you know how it is, it's like toy grade. So here goes nothing, we're gonna take off again. Remember, not ideal, perfect conditions here, but we're definitely flying this thing. Mm-hmm. Still somewhat by suggestion, as you can see by the amazing amounts of huge stick movement. And I've also noticed that in the intermediate mode, I'm not allowed to flip upside down, or am I? Nope, it still limits that. In some of the other models, we've been able to flip upside down in intermediate mode. So now in expert mode, it just gets wonk as all get out immediately, okay? So I don't know what to think on that, but I definitely can think we have some storms coming. And we got a window in the weather, so we took it. And you took it!
Have you tried the flip roll?
Oh yeah, I have.
Thing?
How about we do that? I tied it to my I button, so I button and then back. Ah, there it goes, it's trying.
It's trying.
Didn't have enough airspeed. So what I'll do is I'll bring it back over, and on the way back toward us, I'll do the roll. So press the button and then roll. Whoa! Just remember, it's not very intelligent. It just kind of does it immediately, and it doesn't stop halfway. So we'll try that again. Okay, so pressing the button and roll. Whoa!
There you go.
So it doesn't keep it level or anything. It just kind of does the thing that makes it roll. So it's a fun little toy. And it's definitely gonna get you where you wanna go, maybe, possibly. I shut off my 10% expo and went to 5% expo, thinking that might help a little bit. Let's try it. It definitely does not let it come out of that level attitude. It is very locked in that regard, and it's not calm here, guys. So camera crew is gonna get off the runway. Perfect, right there. We're gonna try wheels up, wheels down landing. Oh, yes! Oh. As you can see, we could never do that with the provided transmitters, or at least in the past we have been able to do it. I just wanted to mention also, even on this cheap little toy grade, we have soft squishy tires.
Yes.
Which just astonishes me.
In case you're listening.
So anybody else want to see it without landing gear? I do. So I'm gonna take the landing gear off and just show you how hard this is. Oh, squishy, squish them.
They're squishy.
Yep, they're squishy. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna pull the landing gear off. 1, 2, and these are actually pretty robust landing gear, as you saw.
Yeah,
they
pretty,
didn't
the wire
chatter around like crazy. We're just gonna pop this. Ooh, the tail wheel's the hardest to get out, which you could hypothetically leave that on there. Now I'm a little bit nervous it's gonna be very tail heavy. If you wanna pocket those.
Which way do you want me to go? Just backwards?
What do you mean? I'm just gonna launch the plane.
Okay.
So here we go. Full throttle, and there it is, guys. So as you can see, it's still flying. You know what else we could do to make this plane fly better is we could just put the control arms into the outside hole instead of the middle hole as they currently are. And that would be one thing that would help. But as you can see, it's very windy. And they suggest in the manual, nothing over 15 miles per hour. Well, I'm here to tell you this. We're having gusts over that. Well, wow, those clouds are cool.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get like sucked up in a tornado or something.
That would be really awesome.
Great video. The clouds are so cool though.
Yeah. Okay, so basically hitting the back button and there's your loop. As you can see, it just executes. I don't want to call it flawlessly because it's really, everything about this is nice and wide and relatively easy to control, especially when you're on this not ready to fly transmitter. Now I gotta say, it does not change the amount of character. Okay, we're going into expert mode now with the gear off. We'll see if that changes anything. It's like flying way better actually. I don't understand. Whoa, there. And as soon as I spoke, it went to prove me wrong. Going on the inside. Woo-wee! Every time you hear me say woo-wee, that means I was virtually out of control. Okay, that was me not pressing the one button U-turn. That was me going into expert momentarily. And I just feel like, I mean, I'm not used to having to move the sticks so far to get some movement out of an airplane. And so it is definitely a flyby suggestion model here. Trying to kind of just do some acrobatic tricks and stuff. I mean, since I actually have Expo, oh, that's true. I could put my Expo to the high rate or to the highest Expo and then go into expert. Let's see how that works. Okay. Now I did use B and we will show you exactly what we did to set up the programming. Oh, yes, there it is. Very nice.
So now you're in high rates?
No, I'm in my lowest rates.
Oh.
Oh, by the way, they do claim 150 meters of range on this, but they suggest don't fly any further than 100. And the only reason I'm answering these questions, and by the way, that bird is trying to rendezvous with my P-47, it looks like.
Yes, it is.
The only reason that I'm answering all these detailed questions is because these are the questions we've gotten over the years about these little models. And as much as I love to be able to say, we always know, we almost never know. And I actually read this manual trying to figure out how to get that belly plate off. And so I answered some questions. Okay, great. So as you can see, this has a prop saver. The prop saver comes in really handy. Now, obviously I don't tend to crash into the ground that hard. I might crash into a tree like over there once in a while, but I generally don't crash straight into the ground like that. Part of the problem, I think, on this plane is that we're in the middle hole and we could go to the inside hole and get more control authority. And same thing on the rudder. Now, that's not going to change the amount of bank you're allowed to have on this particular aircraft. Okay, so we're about to get some relief from the sun. It was making it hard to see. If you want to stay right there, that'd be great. Okay, throttle cuts off. I'm going to go ahead and just hand launch. The wind is sort of, yeah, it's going this way. Full throttle and just give it a toss. Very nice, very nice. Now be aware, it's got some wide turns. They might be glorious looking, but the truth is they're wide. So if you have wide turns, what does that mean? Better not fly too quick, too close to the house, because there's a good chance you're gonna end up in your front yard or in your, I meant to say your front room. There we go, into expert mode. Oh, that's pretty cool right there. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, into beginner again. Let it recover, turning it around. Now, are you gonna learn to fly with this model? My guess is probably not, but look how rock solid it looks in the air. I mean, it's just really locked in. Let's see what a landing looks like. Not a crash, but a landing. And just bringing it around. As you can see, carrying quite a bit of speed. We'll try to land kind of like on the far side of the runway here, in the grass. There we go. Okay, so no problem there. Really easy. That was a 10 minutes worth of flight, plus a little bit of jabbering time. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna switch out the battery to another battery that's also 400 milliamps 1S, and we'll show you with the stock transmitter so you can compare how the experience was. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we came back inside so I can show you the whole process. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the battery like normal. Super easy loading process. And we will go into more detail in the Unbox Build radio setup. This one's the one I labeled, 402 millimeter top RC, 400 milliamp hours. So this one came from a recent one that was a 0, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna get that one ready. I'm gonna show you just how easy it is to take this out. Now, you don't have to use an X-Acto knife, but if you use an X-Acto knife, you run less risk of damaging anything, okay? So I like to go between here and just pull it up and out, okay? There you go. And then there's this little wire. As you can see, I got quite a bit of wire stuffed in there. And there's the little transmitter that we used, or the receiver. Pretty cool. And as you can see, there's an S-bus plug on what would be the center. And then on your left, my right, there is the plug for this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and unplug that, and we'll show you the full ready to fly action. Now that's gonna be bound and set up with this model, which is pretty cool, because I think we're probably gonna do some more of these top RC models in this size class as they come out. And we hope to bring you more opportunities to see this. And it's basically, see if they're any good. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna refer you back to the P-47 with those other planes, is my guess, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and throw the gear back in, and we're gonna get stuff ready to fly, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we talk about this more in detail in the Unbox Build Radio Setup part, but also if you wanna do OpenTX, this is multi-protocol capable, of course, and they actually give you the layout, which is pretty cool. So that's nice, so I used that already today, and it's a V761 protocol, okay? So that is gonna be discussed a little bit more in detail as we attempt to share that in our Unbox Build Radio setup. But just keeping in mind, I'm gonna now shut off my NX10, and then we're gonna have this one ready to go, and we're gonna put away our X-Acto knife. So if you guys are curious on how you can help support Brian Phillips RC for helping go through some of these technical things, what you can do is you can buy the planes from the links in the video description below. If you don't like the planes in the video description below, then buy something you do like, and we have tons of them down below. Also, we have thousands of videos, so if you can't find exactly what you're looking for, just go over to brianphillipsrc.com, and that's B-R-I-A-N, Phillips, P-H-I-L-L-I-P-S, just like it is in this video, and that's our domain. So you can check that out. Now we're gonna let this initiate. As you can see, it's moving, and they've labeled expert, middle, and beginner. So we're in beginner, that'd be expert, so no stabilization. Mid has stabilization and on auto leveling, and then beginner, the same. But then there's also the one-touch aerobatics, and then if you wanna set, before you arm your motor, you can press down, and then it will actually set, or wait, is it over? I forget. Either way, I don't even recommend it.
Right.
So I'm gonna just have you refer to the manual because I don't wanna explain it because I don't think it works. Because all it does is if, say you're taking off at this heading, it just turns it around. That's it. So what if you were on that pass when it went the wrong way? So like I said, it's a totally useless tool that's only going to give you a false sense of security and cause you to have a big problem with your plane. So the one-touch aerobatics can also get you in trouble too, but it's super fun, so it's worth showing. All you have to do is press this button and then pull back on the stick for a loop, or press this button and then give it left or right aileron to do a roll. So we'll show you that in just a second again, so stay tuned. Okay, so we're gonna go, we're in beginner mode, all the way up, all the way down, arm the motor, and there it is. So just taking off, pulling back on the stick, doing some rolls, excuse me, not rolls, but rolling the aircraft to turn it, using a little bit of rudder in combination with the roll. Everything feels pretty good. Pulling back. Okay, now I'm gonna go level, pushing the button, pulling back on the stick, and it's trying to do a loop. We were with the wind, so that worked pretty poorly. So let's do here, with the wind, and roll. As you can see, it does it with impunity, meaning it doesn't really care where it is in time and space. Let's go over here. Let's go to the mid mode. Yep, it still doesn't let me roll over. So that means that we definitely had the modes correct. Okay, now into expert, I'm sure it's equally terrible, if not worse. Yep, pretty much just as bad as we expected. The expert mode is not as good because the flight controller stops working. And the reason sometimes these little models struggle is because the center of gravity is probably not correct, and they don't really give you a great way to accommodate for that. So if you really want to get the thing spot on and fly an expert, you're going to have to spend a little bit of time and work out the CG, make it perfect, and then it's still going to be questionable. And the truth is, even questionable, it's still fun. Let's do 3 steps toward the runway, please. Perfect, right there. Very good. Pretty cool looking little plane for the price, and also the fact that you've got all that technology packed in there for multi-protocol, and also the ability to plop in a DSMX or DSM2 receiver, or even an S-Bus receiver if you're doing Futaba, FHSS. So I've always thought it was really cool to be able to have different protocols on the same plane, but I guess where the drawback comes is when you hit the runway.
A long ways without
But the cool thing is, guys, if you're brand new to the hobby and you're afraid of flying, you're normal. It's harder than it looks to do this, and even when you kind of know what you're doing, you still make screw-ups like this. One reason that this popped off is because it's designed to do so. The other reason is because I made a mistake. So if you can not ever make a mistake, you don't need to worry about your prop, okay? But if you're a normal human and you make mistakes like me, then having a prop that's removable, automatically removable, is really helpful, and it's gonna help give you the confidence to fly the plane. Part of the probably one of the biggest troubles that people have when they're first new to the hobby is they're just too afraid to fly. They try and they fail, or they don't have as good a success as they expect they might, and then they give up. That's the way a lot of people do a lot of things. But at the same time, with aviation, especially with this type of toy grade aviation, you should just be able to have a good old time. So here we go. So as far as I'm concerned, guys, if you want a good time, buy one of these little planes. You won't regret it. It's not going to be the best flying experience you've ever had, but it's certainly not going to be the worst. If you're an expert pilot, or even just a pilot that has some level of expertise and you enjoy warbirds, these little ones are fun. They're not as good as you're going to get in a UMX. I would be completely exaggerating if I said they were. They're not our favorite plane ever, but they are definitely good for what they do. Are they our favorites in terms of this size class? Yeah, because they're pretty much all those this way. We've never had a 400 millimeter warbird that did anything but exactly like this one, okay? So is this a lot better than the others? Yes, in certain ways. One way it's very much better is the landing gear shafts are thicker, the bogies are stronger. That makes a big difference in wheels up, wheels down performance. Secondly, the tires are soft, which makes it actually possible to land the thing. That's not to say that you're going to actually be able to do that, because the controls are still spongy, even on the NX10, where we have much better precision. You're still ultimately flying by suggestion. And what I mean by that is you're going to be controlling the plane, sort of. The flight controller is flying, you're giving some suggestion, and then it's like, okay, if I can work it into my schedule of dealing with wind. And I think part of the problem we run into is like that. I just need a little bit more authority. When the stick's all the way back, then that's what you get. And I'm flying relatively fast. Now, part of the reason you have to fly fast is because they want to keep the thing looking sleek and fun, and then they want to keep the high speed fast. Well, the only way to really get a plane like this to slow down would be to put the ailerons further outboard and have some inboard flaps. Then you could slow it down and you could make it fast, all in the same package. But then that undermines this simple system, the simple system that wastes channels for things like U-turn. So in my opinion, I still think flaps are the technology that a lot of these little birds are missing, because you can only change the shape of the wings so much and slow it down all the time and still have a fun flying warbird. To me, I would fly a slow flying plane all day long, and be totally satisfied. But many of you are gonna be dissatisfied with that. You want it to look fast, okay? Truth is, this thing is not very fast. Truth is, it's really fun. Truth is, it's not easy to fly anymore than any other easy to fly plane, okay? Truth is, when you learn to fly, you make a lot of mistakes. So there's a lot to consider when you consider a plane like this. And it's not just about, do I like the outline of the plane? Do I like the scale appeal of the plane? It's got to be, will it actually perform? Because we've had a number of small planes that are in this arena that have performed very poorly. This one doesn't do any worse or better than the others that we've seen, in my opinion, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that it's terrible either. So I don't want you guys to hear that wrong. I think it does okay. It holds its own, okay? So if you want a plane that'll hold its own, that looks reasonably good doing it, gives you an opportunity to hand the sticks to your kids without feeling nervous. If you want something that sort of has the lines of a warbird that maybe doesn't do a great job, but it does a good enough job to give you that feel in the air, then look no further than this thing, okay? We've done others in the past and we'll do more in the future. So that's the way we're gonna call it on this one. It's an all right flying toy grade plane that you can add your own transmitter to. And since we do a lot of Spectrum stuff, we wanna tell you how to use Spectrum, okay? And so it's really cool that we can do that. Now, some of the older versions of this same model do not adapt to Spectrum. So if you're like, hey, I've got that top RC model, why doesn't mine have the plug? Well, that's because they just recently updated these, okay? So if you're curious and you wanna get it and you think it's worth it, then check out the link in the video description below. Also, if you wanna see exactly what we did to get our receiver installed and the troubles that we went through, which are mostly based on what I had on the shelf for inventory myself, then you can watch along and maybe you'll pick up a tip or two that'll help you to do it with your own toys and goodies that you have lying around. Now, if you don't have toys and goodies lying around, we'll also link to something that you can buy that'll be a current technology item that you can get right off the shelf, but it's gonna be a little bit bigger and more expensive than the one we used, okay? Truthfully. That being said, is it worth putting the DSMX receiver in here? Guys, I'm just gonna tell it like it is. I don't think it's worth the extra receiver. However, if you have OpenTX, you don't have to add anything. You just have to figure out how to use the OpenTX, which is almost worse than just going and buying the DSMX, receiver, in my no BS opinion. That being said, many of you do know how to use OpenTX. You know how to make a mix, and it's definitely more complicated and more clunky in my experience on my Jumper T8 SG, but there's a lot better choices these days. And if you're into a Radio Master that's gonna give you a ton of channels and a lot of flexibility, you might find that that's a 2-second procedure, okay? So anyway, those are my no BS thoughts on this wonderful little fun toy grade RC experience. It's not gonna be any more than that, and if you're expecting more than that, you're probably gonna let yourself down, okay? That being said, is it good? Sure, it's good. Does it do everything you expect a cheap toy grade RC airplane to do? Yes, but only if you expect it to do the right level of things, okay? We're flying in light wind. That is what I would consider to be light wind. Earlier on, before we filmed this, I actually flew it in heavy wind. It was kind of crazy. And it wanted to fly away from me and I could barely keep up with the wind, okay? There's a reason they say 15 miles an hour max, and that is because if it goes faster than 15 miles an hour, this plane is not gonna come home, okay? So you need to keep that in consideration. And, oh, by the way, we don't do that to mislead at all. We call this a maiden flight, but technically I did fly it once off camera. That was mostly to make sure I didn't screw up the radio setup. I didn't want to give you guys bad reports of things that we were doing.
It was too windy to
Yeah, it was too windy to film. Yeah. So anyway, guys, like I said, that's pretty much all the details I can think of. The other thing is, in terms of looks, if you look at the way this thing looks, our tail was just bumpy as all get out. I think that happens when the containers come over and it just gets hot as hell in those containers. It's got to be what's going on. Because the thing is, if you look at this model, there's nice finish on the bottom, and then there's nice finish here, but then the ailerons start having the bumpiness, and then it gets really bad on the tail. So all I can think is that it was like closer to something that was really hot. So, but beyond that, the looks are all right. The paint is better than what we've seen on some of the previous models. The decals look better, although I can't really figure out if this is really a thing. I don't know if I just don't know how to read, or if that's one of those like alphanumeric things, like it's not actually a word, it's just sort of like spelled to be cheeky or something.
Made it up. I don't know.
I'm guessing the latter. The Chinese must have made it up. But anyway, if you guys know better, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, I can't believe you don't know that. Well, believe me, I don't know that. Otherwise, in terms of robustness, in terms of strength, the wing is stiffer than I remember on other models of this grade, but it doesn't translate to any performance improvements that I can see, which is disappointing. I figured it would. Also, there is a very limited amount of twist. I mean, they actually have this thing pretty solid, okay? That being said, there's also a reinforcement spar in the elevator, in the horizontal stable, and then the rudder, I don't think they did, okay? So a couple things that could be very easily improved on this model. Go to the inside hole on the elevator and the rudder. That's gonna buy you a little bit more authority up until the flight controller decides that you're not gonna control it, okay? So that all being understood, getting the CG right will help improve the characteristics. The weird thing is, I don't know where the CG is. I mean, you could figure on being, you know, here or here. So like 2/5, 1/3 to 2/5 of the wing chord at the wing root. But at the end of the day, I don't know that for a fact. So I'm not even gonna tell you. And I must say also, the landing gear are a lot more robust, but I still think, you know, you're gonna have a hard time with ground handling with this plane no matter what. Just because it's so good at going straight, you can't turn, okay, until you're up off of the mains, or up off of the tail and on the mains. Once you're on the mains, you can sort of taxi, but this is sort of like once you get to that power, it's up in the air anyway.
Yeah.
So I think those are the same concerns that we've had pretty much with every 400 millimeter warbird we've ever done. So it's really, like I said, it pretty much stands to the competition. It looks good. It does a good job looking good. The prop pops off easy. It goes back on easy. It doesn't seem to damage anything. There is a spare prop that's included with this plane, as we've experienced in previous models. Also, they do come with another one of those things. Actually, they give you the whole assembly. So you get a spinner and prop, which is something we haven't always gotten. Sometimes we just get another prop and we just get another clip like this. So you don't always get the extra spinners. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It just depends on the model. So anyway, guys, I think it's a good model. I think it's worth considering, but it also has its limitations. And if you're watching videos on YouTube and all they're doing is saying how great it is and you should buy it right now from the links in the video description, I know how those guys feel, but we just don't do that. We don't cheapen our reviews for any vendor, merchant, distributor, hobby town, hobby shop, Hobbyville, whatever it is, whoever we're working with. At the end of the day, we answer to you guys. We understand what you're looking for because we love this stuff too, and I do specifically. My camera crew, not so much, but she tolerates it being throughout our entire house and every closet, nook and cranny, an entire basement worth of planes. But at the end of the day, I love this stuff, and I want the best that we can possibly get. And so if that means we put the final torpedo in a sinking ship, then you're welcome, RC audience. But we'd rather not work with companies that we need to send torpedoes toward their sinking ship. We just work with the companies that we think are gonna take care of you. They're gonna sell something at a reasonable price, and they're gonna bring good quality. So we think this is probably meeting those criteria, but at the end of the day, don't expect what it's not gonna deliver, because you will be disappointed, okay? All right, guys, hopefully we've hit all the high notes, given an explanation of the way this thing flies and how to do it. And that's what we do on Brian Phillips RC. If you haven't seen the unbox, stay tuned, it's coming up next. As always, smash the like button, it will help the algorithm to redirect us in front of your eyes when we come out with new content. If you haven't already subscribed, definitely subscribe. Click the bell for notifications and choose all so that you see all the notifications when we come out with new content just like this, and better or worse. But also, if you want to support us, we're turning on members, mostly because YouTube has extorted us into doing it. So please don't feel bad. If we get like 30 of you, then they will extort us with some more extortion. I think the extortion's the other way. It's where they like have bad things about us and then they threaten to tell people.
Right.
This is the other way. They're just going to give us money.
It's
so if we get 30 of you guys, then they'll give us some extra cash. So 30 of you guys, sign on up. But really, at the end of the day, we only do it because they're giving us the free cash. We'll take the free cash. If none of you sign up, we won't be offended. We have Patreon, PayPal, and we have, obviously, the stuff in the links is the best way to support us. Super thanks are always welcome. But YouTube loves a membership so they can take their big, huge, fat cut, larger than any other support mechanism we have. And someday, if you're curious, I'll tell you all about it. But anyway, I'm probably not going to do it public and on their platform.
Yeah, you just see us in person.
Yeah, that's right. So guys, if you want to see us in person, we're going to try to do at least one more event maybe this year.
Hoping so.
And we went to RC Fest and Joe Nall, and it was super fun. RC Fest, we got to hang out with sailors and with Pilot Ryan. It was super fun, and we had a blast. And I hope that we'll see you at another event. We're going to mention it in the video, so if you want to meet us in person, we would love to meet you in person. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll do our best to get to them. But we have been doing a bad job, and we apologize. We're trying better, but it's just so hard to keep up. And then also, if you're in Patreon, we can't list it as an actual benefit because then you would have to pay value-added tax if you're overseas, but we do tend to see the comments a little bit quicker, okay? And remember, Patreon, we have low levels, guys. So if that's really critical to you, that's a good trick up your sleeve. But at the end of the day, we want to help all of you, even if you're not supporting us financially directly, but we do want you to buy the planes from the links in the video description below, because that's how we keep the whole ecosystem flowing. They send us stuff, we say, hey, this sucks, and then you buy it anyway. They're happy. They're like, hey, we sent them garbage and you bought it anyway. So that's not the way we want it to work, obviously. They send us good stuff. We say, hey, look, it's actually good. It actually does what they said. And then you're like, hey, I'm interested. We're going to buy that. Okay, great. Then they give us a little pat on the back and it keeps the little circle going. We have neighbor cows that are screaming about that. They're like, I want one, I want one, I want one. That's all I heard. So guys, if you don't like this particular one and you want something like it or something bigger or something different, check out brianphillipsrc.com and you can find anything to your heart's content that you would like. We have them organized not just by manufacturer, but also by type. And we're doing our best. And when I say we, I mean Megan is doing her best to try to get that completed. So if you see something that's still in construction, give her a break. She's working hard on it. But we do appreciate you. That'll bring you back to the videos so you don't have to sort through playlists. Hopefully we've answered every question you ever had in your life. Stay tuned for the Unbox Build Radio setup right now. YouTube, we have a box. We're opening it right now. Let's see what's inside of this thing. It's small, it's in a box. It's not wrapped in plastic, so that's always a good sign. But we'll have to wait and see what that really means. Oh yeah, it's a mini P-47. Amazing. All right, is this thing gonna be any good? I guess we're gonna find out. Let's put it right here. All right, so there's evidently two liveries. Looks like this one and this one. And I don't know which one we got. Looks like we got the blue and black one, which I like a little bit better myself. And this one is mode 2 transmitter. It looks like it comes with a mode 1. And then on these models, there is a new feature that's being built in. By the way, I just want to point out, this is not, what size do we have here?
That one's 402.
This one's 402. So this is a 402 millimeter. And you've seen similar planes, but this has a new controller board in it. So we're hoping that things go really well with it. And we're gonna see. So no promises. We'll find out right alongside you guys. Oh, look at that fancy, nice small package. Got everything you need to fly in the package on this. But I think they will be also offering these as a bind and fly. And you're like, really, bind and fly? Yeah. So I guess we'll find out how this works. Okay. It's not a folded manual, so that's always off to a good start. The plane sits in here upside down, which is a little bit unusual. So we're gonna pull this out. Looks quite a bit more detailed than what we remember. That's pretty sweet. Lots of dimpling, but when you get down and look at the scale details, it's pretty cool. Still got the same pop-off style prop, but it's got a nice detailed hard plastic tip with an accessible screw here, so you can actually undo that, but this will pop off. If you have a hard landing, you can even see the gearbox in there, which is nice. And the cowl looks a little bit more detailed and precise. Okay, and then what else can we see here? Just looking at it, really long wingspan for a P-47, and then reinforced with a spar, which is nice. Single servo for the ailerons. And you can see there's another spar that goes through the middle there. Nice venting for cooling. And we're in the middle holes on the elevator and rudder, as well as the aileron. So that must mean we have quite a bit of throw, because they're willing to get rid of some of that throw. Then on the bottom, we have the customary spare prop, which is nice. That comes in its own little bag, so you can keep that handy. Oh, that does also have the prop adapter fixture attached to it. So you can take that off and salvage that too if you want. And then inside of this bag of goodies, we have, looks like a charger, some landing gear, squishy tires, very nice. And they're a little bit less obnoxious looking than what we've seen on previous small models. That actually looks pretty good.
Snapped in there easy.
And it's thicker. It feels like it's not gonna wiggle as much, which is nice.
Oh.
So we'll see if that actually has enough to resist. Ooh, it looks like it might actually have enough strength. So that's good. That's something we've had problems with in the past. Okay, so we're gonna stuff this down in here for the tail dragger. And of course, it's not a steerable tail dragger, which is a bummer, but it looks like it'll work. And it does seem like it's robust landing gear, which is nice. And it's gonna pivot, but I hope there's enough prop clearance, because those are short landing gear. Would short landing gear look better? What the heck is this thing for? Oh, it's an adapter for some sort of an input, okay. So let's open up where the battery is. It looks like it does have a battery in here. So, whoops. I want to take the provided screwdriver, which is a Phillips tip, by the way. Very small Phillips tip. We're going to pull the battery out. This has an included 400 milliamp 3S pack with this micro connector on it. And it does come with a charger, but you have to provide your own USB wall outlet. And I don't really see anything in here in terms of accessible points where we could plug into. Ooh, but there is another hatch here. I wonder how to open that. Let's plug in the battery and see how this goes. So these little 1S chargers are sometimes, you know, leave a little bit to be desired, because you do, of course, have to provide your own adapter if you're using a wall application, or plug it into your laptop or your cell phone charger. There's a green light that comes on. It changes to red when it's charging. That's kind of nice, rather than just the ambiguous flash versus not flash. I like that. Okay, so we'll let that charge. Oh, and before we get too much further, let's go ahead and see if we can test with our XBC battery checker. We're just gonna throw that on the ground there, because it's always nice to see if it's actually charging. And yes, you can usually get these to work. Sometimes they turn on, sometimes they don't. Doesn't look like I'm getting enough pin contact to actually turn that on. Okay, hold on, am I plugging this in the wrong way? Nope, it's just not enough juice to turn it on. So if that doesn't work, you can use a regular voltage alarm, and you should be able to plug this in. Got a really light beep. It'll beep, 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 just like normal. Okay, so 4 volts. 4.04. Okay, so we're gonna plug this in and let that charge. Now, I did admittedly have that plugged in for just a second, so it might have kicked up the voltage just a little bit. All right, and then we have the included transmitter. I'm going to pull this out. We've seen these usually are a dime a dozen, so I'm not expecting it to be anything too fancy, but with a ready to fly setup, what more can you expect? Let's go ahead and get all our garbage out of the way. All right, right here we've got no spring. We've got yaw. Can't quite tell if there's a button. Okay, that's gonna be for ailerons, elevator. Feels like trim, up, down, left, right. There's a power button. Oh, there's power in it, really. Aerobatics button, beginners all the way toward us, middle, and then expert. And then there's like a simulated antenna here. And they have a screw on this, which I'm not sure why. So if you look right here, we're going to go ahead and undo this screw. It is nice that they provide the screwdriver in this case because you need that to get into here, but it's on. Boy, that is challenging to get out of there. What? So it does come with batteries?
Installed?
Installed? That is
okay.
Very weird. Are these rechargeables? Green power, super power. Do not recharge, so they must be alkaline. That is very strange that there's batteries installed. So I don't know if that's the way yours is gonna come. We've never gotten one like that from China that have batteries installed in them. That is highly, highly, highly unusual. So I guess we'll go ahead and return the provided screw just so we don't have to search for it. And one thing I noticed about the screwdriver, it's kind of weird, is it's an oblong. So like you can actually hold it, which is very strange. See how it's like oblong? I don't know if that's intentional or if we just had a dud. But it says top flight, 2.4 gigahertz digital radio control system. Okay, so everything looks pretty straightforward on that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and see if we can figure out in the manual what that other cover does. So we're gonna flip this plane over while the battery's charging. I see this accessible hatch and I see this and I'm thinking to myself, there's gotta be something to this. But I don't know how to get it opened and I don't wanna damage it. So let's look in the actual manual and see what the actual manual says. So if you guys are new to Brian Phillips RC, what we do is we review airplanes. A lot of what we do is reviewing fixed wing aircraft. We do aircraft in general. We do helicopters, quads, all that stuff too. But my true passion would probably be in the fixed wing area. Okay. If you have an OpenTX transmitter, we are glad to tell you that OpenTX transmitter can be compatible with our above micro airplanes listed. Okay, pretty cool. Please download the firmware to your OpenTX transmitter. Below is a link and firmware type. If you already have the firmware on your OpenTX transmitter, then you could bind our microplanes and fly it. If any questions, please feel free to contact us at info@toprc.com. Okay. So then it shows that. Oh, okay. So they have different channels that do different things. It says the protocol. You can also plug in DSM or S-Bus. The old version does not include the connection ports for the DSM and S-Bus. Okay, so you have to have the newer version to get those plugs. But then I see there's 2 servos on here. And on our plane, I only see 1 servo. So I'm not sure how this is gonna work. But this is an addendum too. I guess I didn't catch that at first. See, it's an addendum and it's loose. Okay, well, let's keep going through here. Oh, is there a canopy? Well, no, not on this plane. That's on the, what is that, a Spitfire? I don't see anything here about taking that off. Does the wing come off? Looks like the wing might come off, but if it does come off, I don't know how to take it off. Is there a single screw somewhere that you're seeing that I'm not seeing? There is this cover here too, but that's way up here. That's all part of this assembly. Well, shoot, I don't know how to get in there. I'm gonna keep looking. Okay, so we used an X-Acto knife. We figured out, the manual mentioned nothing of this. If you take your X-Acto knife and you go in here, you can pry this over and it pops out. See? Pretty simple to get at. And as you can see, there's several plugs. There's one plug here. There's one plug here, a couple of servos, a little bit of glue on there actually. In fact, I'll get this glue off of here while I'm seeing it. And then there's two plugs right here. This one says S-Bus, and then this one says DSM. Right here, so the one that's to this side, that's DSM. And then this plug, I don't know which one it does, would go to that. It's not really sure if this is the S-Bus one or if this is the DSM one. I don't think they're the same, so let's see if we can, yeah, this one looks like an S-Bus plug. So yeah, that one appears to be the S-Bus adapter that's gonna take you out to this plug. Okay, now why does that matter? Well, that matters because that allows you, if you'd like to fly this with your multi-protocol, you can do that without any sort of an adapter. But if you decide you want to try to fly it with like your Spectrum transmitter, like what we use most of the time on this channel, then you could actually do that as well. And then of course over here, this is the protocol. So it tells you what channel does what: aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder, gyro, calibration, flip, RTN action, return to normal action. I don't know, return to normal. So there's evidently 9 channels into play. Not really sure if all 9 are actually used or if that's just the way they lay out the protocol. But this addendum might be helpful, and then you might need a connector like this, but I don't know what you're gonna need in your given situation. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our battery or a similar battery. We're gonna see if we can bind to it, move the control surfaces, and come right back. All right, so just so you know, if you get this plane as a ready to fly, then you're gonna be able to fly it, okay? Ours came with batteries. I don't think I would plan on yours coming with batteries because we've never seen one come with batteries like that. So I'm plugging in the plane. Whoops. This is another battery that we have lying around. And I'm just gonna show you how not to do it, okay? So you're gonna plug it in. That is the incorrect order, by the way. They want the transmitter on first, which would be customary in most applications. You would always have your transmitter on first, but I'm just gonna show you if it works or not. So it appears to work, so I guess you can turn it on either order, okay? Now, I'm gonna move my throttle stick all the way up and listen for a beep. There's one beep, all the way down, listen for a beep. That arms the throttle, so we have plenty of good power there, okay? And then we can see what the features are for the gyros. So in beginner, here's the middle. Oops, that's expert. And then in beginner, when you're in beginner, it's gonna try to auto level. So I'm gonna go to expert. So that does no stabilization. In middle, it has stabilization, and I assume it's auto leveling as well. And then in beginner, it's gonna also give limits to the bank angles. And it's a little bit hard to tell on these small models if that's actually happening or not, but we'll be able to see it in air. Okay, so the good news is that all works. Also, there is a technology built in here for one key return to home. I don't like it. It's a U-turn. All it does is turns around from the direction you took off. You have to set that before you arm the throttle if you decide to do that. I don't even recommend a feature, so I'm not gonna waste a lot of time talking about it. because I've never seen it really work, and I think it's just gonna confuse the heck out of a beginner pilot. So what we will talk about is the one-touch aerobatics, which is where you press this button and then you pull up on the elevator and it actually will do a loop for you, or you press and hold that button and then you do an aileron and it'll do an aileron roll. And just remember, whatever altitude you're at, it's gonna stay at that altitude. And you do have to have throttle, enough throttle to be able to complete that maneuver, because it'll just try to do it and it'll fall out of the sky. Now that also takes over controls for a second, so just be aware that you don't need to make a turn because there's like a brick wall in front of you, okay? So a couple things there. Also with trim, this is for the rudder. This of course is for throttle, as you can see. So it's shared. This is a mode 2. This will be for the elevator. This will be for the ailerons, okay? And so imagine if you were inside of that plane, this is the way the stick would work. And then this would be your pedals for the rudder, okay? And then of course your throttle is over here. That's called mode 2. Mode 1 would be a different setup. I'm not gonna confuse you with the details, but mode 2 is what we're dealing with here. You can get this plane as a mode 2 or a mode 1, okay? So make sure when you order, you're ordering the right thing. And yes, we will have links for you to follow to help support Brian Phillips RC if you like the content that you see here on our channel. So of course, this plane is not gonna be for everybody. It is somewhat of a beginner toy grade level, but with the addition of being able to hook it up to a more robust transmitter, and even in the past, you could hook up to multi-protocol transmitters, but if I can hook it up to my Spectrum transmitter, I'm really excited about that. And so for that reason, we're gonna go into a little bit more elaborate setup today, and we're gonna show how to make this work with your Spectrum transmitter, and we're gonna try to get ours to work. Now, of course, you can use an OpenTX like Radio Master, or we had a T8SG jumper that would have also worked in OpenTX platform, but I find it almost impossible to assume that a beginner would be able to figure out how to do all that stuff, because it is more of like an expert's game. And I've been doing this for almost a decade now, and I have a really hard time with it, but I'm really well versed in the Spectrum's DSMX platform, so I can talk about that with a little bit of authority, so we're gonna go in that direction. Now that's not to say that you can't use those other protocols, or S-Bus. If you use Futaba, then you can use S-Bus. In fact, I have S-Bus receivers that are extremely small, and they're in my bag of goodies here. I don't even know if it's in this bag, but I've had them and they're just like the size of your fingernail. They're very, very small. And that's super desirable in this type of application. But for today, what we're gonna do is we've already demonstrated that this thing will work as prescribed in the ready to fly setup with a ready to fly transmitter. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop this battery out. We're gonna shut off our transmitter and lay this aside. Of course, all the stuff we've talked about so far has come with the plane, with the exception of I borrowed this from my Zero, which we have sitting over there, just because it's charged. Also, this bottom is easy to take off. We already showed how to do that, so just don't lose that, because you'll wanna put that back on once you get everything set up. But I wanna see if we can set up a new model and get this thing to work. So I'm gonna use the NX10. I'm gonna fire this up, cancel and back, takes us to add new model, and we're gonna create an acro, okay? So the first thing we need to do is we need to name the model once it actually creates it. I think I'm up to 167 models, so it takes a long time to start, okay? Then model name, so we'll go in here and we'll type in Mini P-47 and we'll come right back. All right, so top RC Mini P-47, 402 millimeters. All right, then aircraft type should be a basic wing configuration. I'm just gonna select an image. Actually do have a P-47 in here, so we'll use that. And then I'm not gonna really do much of anything in terms of special assignments, because I just wanna see if we can get it to bind first. Okay, throttle cut is something I wanna use. Switch H. Okay, so it's working. turn it off, and you can see that the throttle is live down here on the monitor. Throttle cuts on, so we're good there. And then timer, I think they said 10 minutes, and then it'll start beeping. So I'm gonna go 1 out active. So anything over 25% throttle will activate it. And then at 1 minute, I want a voice. 20 seconds, nothing. 10 seconds, I want a voice. And then expiration, I want tone and vibrate with a tone every minute thereafter. Okay, and then I want to set up my dual rates in Expo. Okay, there's 5. Now remember, there is going to be modes we have to set up on this plane, and so we'll come back to that and try to figure it out after a little bit. Okay, we're just going to set this up like we always set up every plane that we ever do on Brian Phillips RC, with the exception of planes that have some more sophisticated flight controllers, and then we don't necessarily do this. So if you're new to the channel and you want to see more content like this, check out some of our thousands of videos that are available right now. All you have to do is search our channel, or you can go over to brianphillipsrc.com and you can help organize the different videos, because there's literally thousands of them. So we have the same for rudder, elevator, and ailerons, and we're going to be starting in the middle setting, and that's going to give us both a more touchy stick and a less touchy stick, but we're going to start in the middle to begin. Okay, so now at this point, everything should be ready to go. Throttle cuts on, so I think we're safe at this point. So now let's talk about receivers from Spectrum, okay? This is the current revision of receiver, and you're gonna notice something about the plug. There are 3 wires on this particular plug. So this one is a DSMX carbon fuselage remote receiver, okay? So that gives us the ability to bind. This has 4 wires, and we only have 3 wires inside of here. That's because this is SRXL2, as is this SRXL2. Both use 4-wire configurations, okay? So you can actually cheat that out, I believe. But for now, what we're gonna do is we are going to just show, okay, if you were to use this, they have another one that's like this without the carbon fiber additional antenna. And if that doesn't work for you, there's a million different choices that we used in the past that are as satellite receivers, not the least of which is, you know, like this. I got this from somebody, and the question was, is it bad? And the question is, I don't know. So if this one's bad, then we would be able to find out, but this uses the old technology because it's only got 3 wires, okay? So the 3 wires, and by the way, you can tell if it's got the same plug. Yep, this is a slightly different plug, so that's good. See how there's different openings? Okay, so that's the S-Bus style. So what's gonna happen is, this one might actually be a good fit for this application because look how small it is. Okay. Now also, if you ever need to save space, you can actually take the case off of some of these. And so we'll usually bind with another receiver like this, because in order to bind these, there's no bind button. So how do you then bind them? Well, the way you bind them is usually with another receiver. Okay, these ones have a pulse that has to be applied in order to start bind mode, but you can also just press the button on these. They have buttons. So they're actually quite easy to bind, but I don't know that that's going to work in this application just because of the different type of plug. So we're just gonna go ahead and cheat and use an XPC battery checker rather than getting like another plane or an ESC. We're gonna use this cable. Now again, this stuff didn't come with it, so I don't want you to think that it does, but I'm just gonna inject some power into this receiver on pretty much any port. And we know where the port layout is by just kind of having a little bit of experience with that. So I'm gonna go into servo, setup, test. Okay, so then what that's supposed to do is that should wake this up, unless I have this hooked up wrong, which I don't. So I'm just gonna go into the different channels. Remember, this one might have been bad. Okay, so if that's bad, then we'll just go to another one. And this is just, you know, when you start doing this hobby for a while, you're gonna find out that you'll have stuff like this that just shows up. Oh, look, and there's one of our S-Bus. There's our S-Bus, that's actually FHSS. So it's similar protocol, but it's not DSMX or DSM. This is a little serial satellite receiver as well right here from Spectrum. And you can see that's only got the 3 wires, so that would also work. FPV Racing serial receiver, and that's got auto bind on it, which would be like the easiest way to do it. So if you did something like that, but I don't even know if you can get this one right now. Okay, so that would plug in here, and then you would plug it into the plane. But I want to show you the whole, you know, process. So we're going to use this Lemon RX DSM-2 setup, and then I just happen to have a random satellite that I pulled out of another plane, and I've had it in this case like this, pulled out of an airplane for some time, but it's still good for a test, right? So we'll just lay these items out of the way so as not to confuse the matter. And on this one, you've got a little 3-pin plug on the side where the satellite's to plug in. And in this case, this is just an old technology DSMX still, plugs in there. And then we'll see if we can energize this thing here. So I'm gonna plug this into throttle. Oh yeah. So you see how there was a flash, but it's like there's not maybe enough juice going on. So give us just 1 second, we'll be right back. Okay, so I figured out what I was doing wrong. I just need a bigger battery that was not dead. So 60% is its storage level. So I basically woke up, went into my servo setup, so I'll go ahead and come back out to the main mode. You see how it shuts off? And also we have to have the bind plug inserted on this one. So it says bind. So bind is up here, which is kind of unusual. And then I don't want to be in throttle because I don't want to set my fail-safe. Okay, so there's aileron. And then I actually plugged this in because this actually was bad. We had that little question mark, it says bad. Okay, well, it was. But we're gonna use that receiver if we can. So what I'm gonna do now is I'll go ahead and wake this system up. I've got my transmitter ready to bind. I'll go into servo setup or test, and there you go. So you can see flashing. So now I should be able to take this and just go down to bind.
Binding. DSM-2, 22 milliseconds, 1024 resolution.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, so now we're bound, and there's one more critical test here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take out the bind plug. I'm gonna de-energize this circuit. I'm gonna look for solid lights when we plug it back in. Okay. Now I see a slow flash. I don't know if that's normal on this model. I'm actually not sure, but I'm gonna try going back into bind.
Binding. Bind failed.
Yep, bind failed. Okay. So now I've turned that off. I'll re-energize the circuit. And you'll see there's no light. Okay, so I'm gonna go back into bind mode. See, it doesn't work. I have to start from scratch. So power cycle it. It checks for the bind plug, the presence. That's a fast flash. I'm gonna go to bind.
Binding. DSM-2, 22 milliseconds, 1024 resolution. Bind complete.
Okay, great. So now at this point, I should be able to actually unplug this, and I'm gonna plug it back in. Well, I'm gonna take out the bind plug. I'll de-energize the circuit like we did before, and I'm gonna plug it back in and see what happens. So it's a slow flash. I'm not actually sure if that's normal or if that means there's some sort of a conflict, but we're gonna find out in just a second, okay? So that one should still be bound to here. So let's go ahead and plug this in, and this one probably won't be bound, okay? It's another satellite receiver, but it's got auto bind. Okay, so we plug this in, and then there's nothing, okay? So now watch this. Unplug the chunk of them. Okay. Oh shoot, I gotta have the bind plug in first. So I'm gonna put the bind plug in first. And this is part of the reason why it's so nice to work with some of the latest technology, is that you don't have to do as many of these steps. You can see it flashing. By the way, this one doesn't auto bind. The one that auto binds is over here. Okay, so we're gonna see if that slow flash is normal. Binding.
PSM2 22 milliseconds, 1024 resolution.
Looks good to me.
Bind complete.
Okay. So now we're gonna unplug the bind, unplug for power, re-energize, and see what happens. See, it's got a slow flash on both now. Okay. That's not what I remember. I thought it was supposed to go to a normal, like just a solid on.
Solid.
But I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the transmitter and you should see those lights shut off. Yep, we lost connection. That's what we expect. Now I'm gonna turn this back on. You should see that come back. Yep. So we've reestablished connection. Okay, great. So now I can de-energize this circuit. I can go ahead and take this ugly one or this ugly one, and we'll just, for the sake of argument, we'll just go ahead and use whichever one we grab first. But I am probably gonna need some forceps to reach in there, don't you think?
Yeah, that's pretty tight.
So if you guys don't have a pair of forceps, you might wanna get some. They're a very handy tool. The bent tip is what you'll find that you use more often than the not bent tips. Now I'm looking inside of this plane and I can tell that there is like a hole on, I'll use the X-Acto knife to point it out. There's kind of like a relief here, okay? Well, nope, it's actually just a molding thing. See, I thought it was like this, where there's a little bump. And that's gonna help me, see how there's two little dots here, 1 and 2? Those dots are gonna help me figure out which direction to slide this in, okay? There's also this little rib that's here, so that rib needs to go back, like that. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to hold, well, I actually prefer to use this orange one, just because of the size. So I'm gonna go with that, and then that rib needs to go to the back. So I'm gonna hold this upside down, grab onto here, holding it sideways. I'm gonna get that X-Acto knife out of the way so I don't cut myself. I'm gonna get the receiver out of the way. I'm just gonna slide stuff out of the way. Okay, here we go. Gotta go to a pretty steep angle. Whoops, you don't wanna grab the cable. Oop, yep, that's what I was afraid of. So these are somewhat delicate connectors, so you gotta be a little bit careful. And they do not make this very easy, do they?
No.
So there's gonna be some planes that are easier and some planes that are harder in terms of getting this plug plugged in. But goodness gracious, that is not a convenient spot. Well, I got it in there, I think. So now what I need to do is get in there sideways and push it the rest of the way. Okay, so it's clicked in. Now, the cool part is, if we did everything right, which there's a high probability we didn't, then we're gonna find out right now. So I can just put this stuff off to the side. Again, we've discussed a lot of tools and things that you may or may not actually already have, but anything I have here, we can help you refine down what you need to accomplish your goal, okay? Now, if your goal is just to get this thing in the air, you can just buy it as a ready to fly. But if you want to really enjoy the flight experience, hooking it up to your own transmitter is a cool way to do that. Okay, so plugging in the battery now. I can see a flash on the receiver. Okay, so we're just waiting to see if there's any engagement here. You know what I bet it is? I bet that flash is because we never set a fail-safe. I wonder if that's what the deal is. So I don't see anything engaging yet. So what I'm gonna try is, this is a little bit different circumstance this time. I'm gonna de-energize my transmitter while protecting myself by holding the little plane. It's so small, you don't have to worry about getting cut. Okay, so I'm shutting off my transmitter. That light shuts off. Now I'm gonna start the transmitter back up. Now it starts going back into the flash, okay? So everything hypothetically should work, but I don't think it's gonna work because I don't think it's getting out of some mode that it's in right now, okay? So once we get that done, this is not spatially aware, it doesn't care, the aircraft is. So I'm gonna go over to monitor mode and just look at the channels. All the way up, all the way down, no change. Yaw left, yaw right, roll. Just moving different switches that might be attached to different channels that could have some sort of an interactive. Okay, so we've established that that doesn't seem to work. We're definitely getting power to this thing. We definitely had some sort of a connection, but I don't know if it's a full connection or if we did it right, okay? So I'm gonna jump into this other one that we bound up. We're gonna try that one next. Whoops. Yeah. Okay, so we have that slow flash. And I don't see anything working yet. But again, that's assuming I did everything right. So we're gonna play with this, we'll come back and let you know what we did wrong. Okay, so I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I'm gonna try this auto bind receiver before we dig any deeper, okay? So this one here, it should go into an automatic binding mode, okay? So if you click and scroll down to bind, so it found it and it went to a solid light, which means it should wake up. Okay? So it woke up, but it's still not doing anything. So we're gonna re-power cycle this. First throttle cuts on. Now we have a solid light, that's good. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just re-plug and unplug. So unplug, obviously that shuts off the plane. Now I'm gonna re-plug. Oh yeah, there you go. There we go, guys. Elevator, rudder's going backwards. So we're gonna click into here, servo setup, travel, reverse, rudder, left, right, elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right. Okay, so now we'll walk over to the monitor mode. Now, this is where this protocol might come in handy because we can tell that channel 1, 2, 3, so we have aileron, elevator, throttle. So throttle's channel 3, so see that? Normally channel 3 would be the elevator, but you can tell it's definitely, whoops. Throttle cuts on. Camera crew so kindly got my stuff from the ground. So I'm gonna put the battery in now that we have it connected. Now I'm just gonna be the first to admit we have not figured out why we don't have the other two fully bound, and we'll figure it out. But for now, we're just gonna use this auto bind because we know that it at least proves that DSMX DSM2 is possible. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do, is prove this stuff. Not necessarily get it all set up on the first go round, because sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to figure this stuff out. But like I said, if you're a brand new pilot, you don't need this. It's just that it's helpful because you're gonna have a lot better transmitter, okay? All right, so let's talk about this. Throttle cut, obviously, when that's off, goes all the way up, all the way down. And I think I know why, because if you look at that, it says minus 100, and then it goes up 3%. That's all the way up, that's all the way down. Throttle cut's on. So I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna go to system setup, disconnect RF, and I'm gonna go down to system settings. I'm gonna go to next, 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 next. Okay. So now I'm gonna calibrate my sticks. Okay, so I'm moving them to all the, and then I'm gonna center it. Go into the perimeters, and then I'm gonna center it. Sliders all the way over, and then leave them centered. And same thing with the knob, all the way, and then centered. Okay? So then I'm gonna hit save. Throttle's high, throttle cuts on, throttle sticks down. Now that might resolve the issue, it might not. I'm gonna go ahead and hold the tail. Throttle cuts off. Going back to monitor, you can see I'm at minus 98. If I hold that stick all the way down, then it's actually okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and set the trim a couple clicks. That's one thing you can do to get it back to 100 for both throttle cut and in live mode, okay? Now, that's not gonna change any of your other models, so it shouldn't be a big factor, okay? Because that's just gonna be attached to this particular model, right? So that being said, you could actually fly this plane, but I wanna know how to set up the modes. The other thing is, can you even fit this larger receiver in here? And the answer to that question is, I'm not sure. But you can put it in between those fingers and just, you know, kind of re-manipulate the antenna into a more appropriate location if you wanted to try to leave it sort of halfway out. But it still seems pretty impractical to me to use the second receiver, because what are you gonna do with all that extra cable? Well, that extra cable can be tucked into the tail almost certainly, but then you actually would be able to fly with your more sophisticated transmitter, and you're gonna have a lot better setup, okay? But we need to figure out how to change modes. So earlier I blew this off the table because the throttle cut was the most important thing. So we have aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder, and then there's gyro on channel 5. So channel 5 would be gear. Oh yeah, that changed something. So now in their application, they have 3 positions for the gyro, okay? So the gyro needs to be a 3-position switch, not just 2, okay? So currently we on 2, we could move it to B. So what I'm gonna do is I'll go down to System Setup, Disconnect RF. I'm gonna go to Channel Assign. And then instead of gear being channel attached to switch A, I'm gonna change that to switch B. And I'm gonna change aux2 to inhibit, okay? So now what that's gonna do is that's giving me 3 unique positions. Nothing, stabilizer, and then something else, okay? Now I don't know which one's gonna be which, but we'll find that out by flying it, okay? Then calibration is, I don't know what channel 6 would be. Let's look at this. Channel 6, that's aux1, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so sticks down and out.
Time remaining 1 minute.
Don't mind the chick, she's not important in this application. I don't know if that's gonna do anything for us. Then there's slip, oh, calibrate. That's to calibrate the return to home function before you arm. So I'm not even gonna use that function.
Oh, okay.
Channel 7 is flip. So channel 7 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, aux2. So I think what I'll do is I'll go down to, System Setup, Disconnect RF, Channel Assign. I'll assign that to I, okay? Because then I have like a button. So now when I press this button, I'm not sure if that's working.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
See, I can't tell if that's working or not. I can tell that I'm actuating that, but I can't tell if it's actually taking the change in state. I guess we'll have to try that in the air. And then RTN action and RTN. You know what? Calibrate must not be, I don't think calib is what we think it is. I don't think they articulated that correctly. I want to try one other thing. System setup, disconnect RF, channel assign. I actually want to put that on switch I. And then I want to put this one on switch D. Whoops. Let's do D. Now watch what happens. Nothing changes. Can't tell if it's changing. Also, I want the stabilizer on with that position. So I'm gonna go to servo setup and I'm just gonna go over to reverse and I'm gonna reverse gear. Okay. All right, so now we have stabilizer by default, whatever the middle setting is, I'm not sure, we'll find out, and then expert is at the top. So that would more closely mimic what the transmitter from the factory comes with. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. If you're flying with something like this, you're gonna have more discrete points between the middle of the stick and the outside of the stick by a long shot. You're gonna have stronger sticks, you're gonna have a better feel, you're gonna have easier time controlling this with more precision. It's just gonna be a better flight experience. Even these ready to flies that come with the bigger size controls that fit your hand a little bit better, like this one's not terrible, they're sloppy at best, okay? It's always been one of my #1 complaints about all these little planes, and I feel like they're at a severe disadvantage because of that. Now, obviously, as you can see from that windsock blowing out there, we're not gonna be flying this right this second because they do suggest a maximum wind of about 15 miles per hour. So if you're a brand new pilot and you wanna fly, wait until a very calm day, and then you can just disregard like the second half of this video where we set up our Spectrum transmitter because you're probably not gonna need it anyway. That being said, we're gonna show this plane in both ways, and probably what we'll do is we will just show the same setup on maybe like one of these other planes when we get more of them, so that you can come back. This will give you a tip on how to use it. We might stop the video for a second and figure this out so we can figure out how to use just a more conventional without auto bind satellite receiver to make it connect. I think what's going on is we don't have fail-safe set up, and so I'll figure that out and we'll come right back next. But guys, before you click away there, camera crew, if you want to help support Brian Phillips RC and this is helpful to you, kind of walking through setup step by step, even though we do bump into problems once in a while, part of the reason we show you the problems is because we don't mean to confuse you, but we do want you to see that even when you sort of know what you're doing, it takes a little bit of figuring out. And so I don't want you to feel like, hey, if I have to figure stuff out, I'm somehow like less of a pilot or incapable of doing it, or I don't know enough and so I'm inferior in some way. You're not. This is the way everybody does it when they're figuring it out. Now, we could choose to just clip out all of the waffling and say, here's the correct thing and this is what, but I find that we all learn together, and so then we become better and more competitively capable together. If I cut out all of our learning process and just give you conclusion, then all you're left with is exactly how to make this particular plane fly in this particular circumstance, instead of learning from what we did that didn't work and why it didn't work. And so hopefully you guys understand that, and that's probably why you're here at this channel. But I would really, just so you guys know, I would like to use this really dinky, crappy satellite receiver because it's just so dang small.
Yeah.
Okay. And then admittedly, if there was a bind button, it would make it a lot easier, but I don't think there is. There's probably an LED over here or something, but some of these little micro receivers that you can get will have a little bind button on them, and it makes it a lot easier. So that would be my suggestion. Now we'll probably go ahead and link to the Spectrum ones if we can get it to work, just so you can buy what's currently available. But if you guys have old satellite receivers lying around, we're gonna try to get to the bottom so that you can copy along on how to do that too. Because obviously, you know, this is not an overly expensive plane, and so I'm not expecting you guys to wanna go out and spend like half as much again on another receiver. But the thing that's kind of nice about this application is if you decided you could actually fly these planes and make them look super nice, then it's probably going to open up the whole world to flying these, as opposed to just, you know, like toy grade experience. If you can take it to a hobby grade experience, it's going to be a better experience. Throttle cut's on. I just noticed that was right pointed at me and I didn't have the throttle cut on. So anyway, guys, very cool new stuff from Top RC Hobby, and we hope that you will enjoy one for your very own by following the links in our video description below. They are getting better. I hope they fly as good as they look, because obviously the looks do matter. I'm a scale snob, RC snob. I love scale looking planes. I will pick out problems with everything that's not scale. like the prop is just kind of a weird size in the landing gear. But when they're small like this, and if they fly decent, then I can definitely put up with a little bit of a disparity there between what I want and what we get. Because as a kid, I would have killed to have something like this. And I'm sure if you're a kid at heart, or if you're an actual kid, this is gonna be a great product for you to consider. That being said, they have limitations. They are not gonna be the best thing you can buy ever. And we don't wanna come across as saying best, fastest, cheapest. You know, that's not what we do here at Brian Phillips RC. We show them the way they are. We show what type of limitations they have. We also show where they've really excelled, at least in our experience. And so we hope that at the end of this video, you're gonna be able to resolve whether or not you wanna buy one based on what we've showed you. Now, also, if you have questions, you can leave them in the comments below, but we have been having a hard time keeping up with the comments, admittedly. Sometimes other people jump in and answer your questions quicker than I can get to them. We don't want you to be off put if that happens. But also we have Patreon, PayPal, and we're gonna have obviously super thanks. And then we're turning on
membership.
Mm-hmm. So if you wanna become a member, we basically didn't really have any plans to do it, but then YouTube was like, we'll give you, some money to do it if you do it by a certain date. So we'll turn it on just to appease the Google gods. So if you see that and you're like, oh, another money grab, just trust us. We would rather you just buy amazing planes to help support us, because we do get financial support from these companies when you buy from the links, and that's the best way to support us. Between that and obviously watching the videos, subscribing, clicking the bell so that you get notified when new videos come out, those are all good ways to help us. But if you're looking for the best way to help support us financially, it would be to buy the planes when you like. I mean, obviously, if you don't like them, don't buy them. That's stupid. If we don't like them, then that's an even better reason not to buy them. But the thing is, what we usually try to do is we try to take our own opinion and just like put it over here, and then we show you what it does and put it over here, and then this is what it could do over here. It used to be back in the day, we would modify things to what we thought we wanted them to be right away. And we've learned that we sort of undermine your ability to read whether or not the plane is good if we do that. So we try our best to test them stock and with some modifications, or stock and modify what you're given in the package to get you where we had a good experience, because then you have a better ability to judge value. So that's what we try to do here, and we hope that you guys see that if it's not already blatantly obvious. But we do those things, and we try to do those things the best we can. So thanks for being here with us again. This is of course, the Unbox radio setup portion of this video. And we had the flights at the beginning, so hopefully we'll have a little bit better weather in the next couple of days so I can fly them. In real time, you guys have already seen this fly and epically fail or epically exceed your expectations. I'm kind of hoping it's the latter. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna lose sleep over whether one model performs. But what we do want to be very careful about is to honor you guys as our audience, who is, without your being here, we would not have this channel. It would do nothing for our family. It wouldn't do anything for the hobby. But with you, we're making progress. We're getting people back into the hobby. We're getting people back off the couch. People that were, just sitting on sidelines watching. We want to get you in here and flying, because really what we need in this hobby, more than just like another successful influencer, which of course we'd like to be, is we need about, 200,000 or 300,000 more people per year that get into the hobby to help offset all the people that are dying off. Because that's the stark reality is the people in fixed wing, we are a dying breed. So if you're breeding, you might want to get your offspring involved, because, if you want it to be around, you're going to want to make sure that we multiply. Otherwise, it's eventually going to stop. So anyway, hopefully that's not too deep for you and too heavy of a subject matter here on Brian Phillips RC, but that is the truth, and we like to bring it here on the channel. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this mini P-47 was everything you'd hoped it'd been, and we can't wait to share the next one. So stay tuned. So much more from Brian Phillips RC coming. All right, folks, so I think I figured out what went wrong. And so I've left this 3-wire plug that we used with our FPV racing serial receiver in a DSMX, which did work fine. It just happens to be quite a little bit bigger than this one that we found from some random orange receiver, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I just plug this orange receiver into this lemon receiver. Haha, it's like a whole fruit bucket. Plug in the bind plug. And I went into ailerons before so as not to confuse the issue. And on this, I wanted to set it to min for servo test. I had it in the middle and I was like, I don't want my fail safe to not set. So I set it to min, okay? And then I just basically engaged to throttle, okay? So when I engage to throttle, oh, I don't have this plugged in. I unplugged it. What happens is then that's as though you have the throttle stick all the way down, okay? So now I can go in here and bind. Flashing and solid. Okay, solid and solid. Okay, I can pull out the bind plug. I'm gonna just more or less de-energize it by unplugging it. And we'll just go over here. Now that one's still connected, so I can actually de-energize that by unplugging it too. And then when I come over to the plane, plug this thing in, and you can see how that only plugs one way versus the other. It's a lot easier to see when you can line it up like that, okay? So that's plugged in. Now I'm gonna reach under the plane. I do have this throttle cut on. And I'm gonna go black to black, red to red, plug it in, let it initiate. And we're gonna give it just a quick sec. Okay, so now everything should be working. Elevator up, down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. Different modes. Off and expert for stabilizer. Stabilizer's on. Okay, and then when I press the I button and then roll, it does this automatic roll. Okay, when I press the I button and then up, it does the automatic loop. Okay?
Okay.
So now I'll do the I button and then the other direction. It does the other direction. Once it's done executing, it just goes back to regular flight mode. Okay? Also throttle cuts off and you'll notice it doesn't jump to start, which is good. And then we have regular throttle control as expected. Throttle cuts back on. And you can see everything's working. So now, in this particular setup, I'm gonna have to find a way to hide this so I can take it back out because I don't intend to keep it with the plane forever, but I'm gonna go ahead and tuck it down in here. Of course, the battery is gonna eventually need to be parked. So we park the battery like that. Tuck the lead down there. There it goes. And then in this case, I wanna leave some of this accessible so I can pull this out when we're done playing with it, because I want to use it in other planes too, okay? So I've got it down there and you can see there's plenty of room to park that back there, but I don't want to make this bind up any of my electronics, but I do want to make this so I can get it out easy, okay? You can see it right here. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Okay, a little additional value. Didn't expect to get. And I'm just gonna tuck this down and then I'm gonna test and see if I have any issues with movement. Feels pretty good. I don't think it's gonna interfere enough to cause a problem, but we should easily be able to pull that string, or not string, but cable, and get it back out, okay? So pretty simple. There you have it, guys. Now you've got your DSMX capable, which is a lot better than just OpenTX, in my opinion. Now, that being said, OpenTX, the multi-protocol, is the easiest way to do it if you want to go, you know, if you want to try to avoid, or if maybe you don't even fly, maybe you have a radio master that you already use on a regular basis. I can't tell you how to set up the transmitter because I'm not super skilled with that, but there are a lot of aids out there. So I guess for now, what I'm going to tell you is this. Oh, and by the way, that is bound in DSM-2. Mm-hmm. But that is dictated by the receiver in this case, not by the transmitter, okay? So DSM means DSM-1, DSM-2, DSMX, okay? So here you have it. That's the way it works. Cool. So hopefully we answered your questions and we appreciate your support in one of many different ways. if you choose to do so. But if not, no big deal. We just appreciate you smashing the like button at minimum, if that's the least you can do, if you watch this entire video. And there are so many videos just like this. If you're searching through the interweb and struggling desperately to find help in your RC experience, you have landed in the right place, and that's Brian Phillips RC. So we appreciate you being here, and we're gonna help you get to the next step. That's what we do. We've been doing it for years, and we appreciate you very much being here and part of our little RC ecosystem. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned. So much more coming.